so exciting. I'm telling you. Hi. Yes! Ah! Is it time? This was like 1:29, right? It's close enough. Close enough. I'm telling you. Yes. Ooh. That's frosty. Frosty cold. That's ice cold, man. Brr. It's hot today. So I have a frosty, icy cold beverage. And I pulled the blinds because it was just so bright in here and hot too. But luckily we have a little indoor light. There we are. Hi, everybody's logging on. How you doing? Hey, Chicago. Hey. It's like romper room. David and Marilyn and Diane. Bill Graff's here. Okay, it's a party now. Bill Graff's here, so we're good. So today is the last chapter of Little House on the Prairie. The third book, where they're in Kansas. They're leaving Kansas. Because yesterday, all hell broke loose. Because it was the Indians and the thing, and then that awful Mr. Scott and the lovely Mr. Edwards came by and said, the soldiers are coming, it's moving us. And Scott, of course, said, like, I'll stay and fight it out. And Paul's like, yeah, no, I'm leaving. We're packing now. We're just going, they're leaving because they're going to go. And you know where they're going to go? They're going to go to Walnut Grove. They're going to go to Minnesota, and they're going to go to the banks of Plum Creek. That's where they're going to wind up. So we're like, starting the new one. And then it's going to get crazy because then it's like Nellie Oleson, and Miss Beadle, and like things happen. So exciting. I'm very excited about the next book because this one's kind of sad and depressing because it's death and panthers and wolves and terrible, sad things with the Native Americans being forced off their land. So we're going to end that madness and we're going to go to the happy, happy place of Walnut Grove where life is beautiful. Although I think they still get like sick and almost die and there's no food and things. And then, there's the locust, plague of locusts. There's a plague of locusts in the next book, just in case things are going too well. So let us start with the last and sad chapter of this book. Chapter 26, last one. Going out. After breakfast next morning, Pa and Ma packed the wagon. First, all the bedding was made into 2 beds, laid on top of each other across the back of the wagon, and carefully covered with a pretty plaid blanket. Mary and Laura and baby Carrie would ride there in the daytime. At night, the top bed would be put in the front of the wagon for Pa and Ma to sleep in, and Mary and Laura would sleep in the bottom bed where it was. That sounds good, little bunk bed thing, right? Next, Pa took the small cupboard from the wall, and in it Ma packed the food and the dishes. Pa put the cupboard under the wagon seat, and in front of it he laid a sack of corn for the horses. I'm so glad he kept the cupboard, because he just built all this furniture. So they did at least keep the cupboard. That would be good. It will make a good rest for our feet, Caroline, he said to Ma. We'll just put our feet on the horse feet, it'll work. Ma packed all the clothing into 2 carpet bags, and Pa hung them to the wagon bows inside the wagon. Yes, carpet bags. You've possibly heard the term. Carpetbaggers. Carpetbaggers mean people coming in from somewhere else to do things politically or what have you. Because carpetbaggers, they're coming in with my suitcases from out of town. Carpetbags. Opposite them, he hung his rifle in the straps, and his bullet pouch and powder horn hung beneath it. His fiddle in the box he laid on the other end of the bed, where it would ride softly. Ma wrapped the black iron spider, the bake oven, and the coffee pot in sacks and put them in the wagon, while Pa tied the rocking chair and the tub outside and hung the water bucket and the horse bucket underneath. Oh, they kept the rocking chair. I'm so glad they kept. That was a lot of work, making the rocking chair, because they're going to leave half their stuff, but they're taking the rocking chair. Good. And he put the tin lantern carefully in the front corner of the wagon box, where the sack of corn held it still. See how they're packing stuff so it doesn't break? Put the big glass lantern, wedge it in there next to the nice sack of corn. Put your fiddle on the bed. Safer. Now the wagon was loaded. The only thing they could not take was the plow. Well, that could not be helped. There was no room for it. When they came to wherever they were going, Pa could get more furs to trade for another plow. You'd think the plow would be important. They're not taking stuff. They're not taking the beds. And they just built a table and beds and all this. They're not taking none of that. Someone just said, what about... Right, he didn't even mention Carrie or Jack. We'll leave the baby and the dog. It's like, where's the baby and the dog? Laura and Mary climbed into the wagon and sat on the bed in the back. Ma put baby Carrie between them because they didn't leave the baby. Because I was wondering, because I was getting close. They were all freshly washed and combed. Pa said they were clean as a hound's tooth, and Ma told them they were bright as new pins. Oh, the compliments of the 1870s. Why, you're clean as a hound's tooth, and you're bright as a pin. I guess that's good. Then Pa hitched Pet and Patty to the wagon. Ma climbed to her place on the seat and held the lines. And suddenly, Laura wanted to see the house again. She asked Pa please to let her look out. So he loosened the rope in the back of the wagon cover, and that made a large round hole. Laura and Mary could look out of it. But still, the rope held up enough canvas to keep Carrie from tumbling into the feed box, because we know what baby Carrie's like. Baby Carrie, if there's a well or an old mine shaft, Carrie will fall in it. If there is a hot air balloon, Carrie will climb in the basket and somehow get the rope and take off into the sky. If there is a horrible thing, Carrie will find a way to do it. So you don't want it, because Carrie will fall out of the wagon. If you don't, Carrie will fall out of that wagon. So they made sure that Carrie will not tumble into the feed box, but Laura and Mary could be. The snug log house looked just as it always had. It did not seem to know they were going away. Pa stood a moment in the doorway and looked all around inside. He looked at the bedstead and the fireplace and the glass windows, and then he closed the door carefully, leaving the latch string out. Someone might need shelter, he said. They left their house, the door open, somebody could just move it. It's got beds, it's got tables, for heaven's sakes, it's got everything in it. You know, he just installed those glass windows. I might have popped the little frames out and just packed them up and taken them out, stick glass in the new house. I might have done that. I might have taken a few more little things. The plow, wasn't the plow like just wrapped in a pile of furs 5 minutes ago? It didn't strike me as that large. Perhaps I could have taken the plow. I don't know. I might have taken a few more things. But that's a modern way of thinking, where we have moving vans and we can take like all our crap wherever we go. So maybe they could have said, no, we can't take all these things. This is too many things. It's junk. So they're probably smart. Travel light. They're smarter than I am. They do not take all that stuff. He climbed to his place beside Ma, gathered the reins into his own hands, and chirruped to Pet and Patty. Chirrup! Chirrup! It's like a soft giddy-up. Chirrup. Jack went under the wagon. Pet whinnied to Bunny, who came to walk beside her, and they were off. Just before the creek road went down into the bottoms, Pa stopped the Mustangs, and they all looked back. As far as they could see, to the east and to the south and to the west, nothing was moving on all the vastness of the high prairie. Only the green grass was rippling in the wind, and white clouds drifted in the high, clear sky. It's a great country, Caroline, Pa said, but there will be wild Indians and wolves here for many a long day. The little house, the log house, and the little stable sat lonely in the stillness. But he's right. This whole Kansas trip, there was a lot wrong with it, right? I mean, he was on Indian land, but they built the house, but he didn't chink it, and then the wind came in, and then he built the chimney out of sticks, and it caught fire, and he dropped a log on Ma's foot, and there were wolves, and he didn't build a door in time, and they almost died. So a lot of stuff went wrong, and I'm kind of going, wow, this was a very ill-fated little trip. So, and it was a year. They lasted like a year. So maybe. Oh, someone's saying the wagons are only 18 feet by 4 feet. Oh, yes. And they had to pack. That's not for. And they had people. They had 5 people. They had mom and dad and 2 kids and a baby and a dog. So that's, they had 5 people and food. So how much can you take? So there you are. Then Pet and Patty briskly started onward. The wagon went down from the bluffs into the wooded creek bottoms, and high in a treetop, a mockingbird began to sing. I don't know how I can't do the mockingbird thing. But I'm going to do pictures, and you can see little animals as well. They're going down in that thing between the bluffs they kept talking about, where like the Indians were in the hollows. There you go, and off they go down the river. I never heard a mockingbird sing so early, said Ma, and Pa answered softly, he is telling us goodbye. They rode down through the low hills to the creek. The ford was low, an easy crossing. On they went, across the bottoms, where antlered deer stood up to watch them passing, and mother deer with their fawns bounded into the shadows of the woods. And up between the steep red earth cliffs, the wagon climbed to Prairie again. Pet and Patty were eager to go. Their hoofs had made a muffled sound in the bottoms, but now they rang on the hard prairie, and the wind sang shrill against the foremost wagon bows. So the wind is whipping now through the wagon, in fact. Pa and Ma were still and silent on the wagon seat, and Mary and Laura were quiet too. But Laura felt all excited inside. You never know what will happen next, not where you'll be tomorrow when you are traveling in a covered wagon. Laura likes this. Laura's like Pa. She's like, Ma would say, can't we stay somewhere? And Mary would sit and do her little sewing things. Laura's like, okay, we're going west. Where are we going? We don't know. Great. She's very brave. Did they? No, they didn't have any wastebasket. Every now and then you didn't hear a wastebasket mentioned. Or they would use everything, or they put it in the fire. You notice any trash in the fire. That's there you get a fireplace. And that happens even in modern times. You get a good fireplace, you can always just fling stuff in there. It's handy. Tisk, tisk, tisk. At noon, Pa stopped beside a little spring to let the Mustangs eat and drink and rest. The spring would soon be dry in the summer's heat, but there was plenty of water now. Ma took cold cornbread and meat from the food box, and they all ate, sitting on the clean grass in the shade of the wagon. They drank from the spring, and Laura and Mary ran around in the grass, picking wildflowers, while Ma tidied the food box and Pa hitched up Pet and Patty again. Then, for a long time, they went on across the prairie. There was nothing to be seen but the blowing grass, the sky, and the endless wagon track. Now and then a rabbit bounded away. Sometimes a prairie hen with her brood of prairie chicks scuttled out of sight in the grass. Baby Carrie slept, and Mary and Laura were almost asleep when they heard Pa say, something's wrong there. Okay, something wrong, another something wrong. Something is always wrong with these people. Oh, no. Laura jumped up far ahead on the prairie. She saw a small, light-colored bump. She couldn't see anything else unusual. Where? She asked Pa. There, Pa said, nodding toward the bump. It isn't moving. It should be moving? It isn't moving. Laura didn't say any more. She kept on looking, and she saw that the bump was a covered wagon. Slowly it grew bigger. She saw that no horses were hitched to it. Nothing moved anywhere around it. Then she saw something dark in front of it. Well, this doesn't sound good at all, does it? No. The dark thing was two people sitting on the wagon tongue. There were a man and a woman. They sat looking down at their feet, and they moved only their heads to look up when Pa and Patty stopped in front of them. Okay, this is bad. What's wrong? Where are your horses? Pa asked. I don't know, the man said. I tied them to the wagon last night, and this morning they were gone. Somebody cut the ropes and took them away in the night. Well, what about your dog? Said Pa. Well, I haven't got a dog, the man said. What dog? What is this about dogs? Jack stayed under the wagon. He didn't growl, but he didn't come out. He was a sensible dog, and he knew what to do when he met strangers. Well, your horses are gone, Pa told the man. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Your horses are gone. You'll never see them again. Hanging's too good for horse thieves. Yes, the man said. Well, this is true. Horse thieves. You're out in the middle of nowhere, and stealing someone's horses is it's not nice. It's theft. It's like stealing a car, but it's worse because in these circumstances, stealing someone's horses could be manslaughter, could be murder, because you take someone's horses and they're out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the prairie, they could die. They have no transportation and no one's going to come rescue them. So stealing horses is a very serious matter. It'd be like stealing someone's car while they were parked and camping in the middle of the desert with no water, and you went, oh, just take your car. Yeah, it's like killing people. It's very, very bad. It's very bad. Pa looked at Ma, and Ma barely nodded. Then Pa said, come ride with us to Independence. Wait, they can't leave them there. They'll die. So it's like, no, get in the car. No, said the man. All I've got is this wagon. We won't leave it. Why, man, what will you do? Pa exclaimed. There may be nobody along here for days, weeks. You can't stay here. I don't know, said the man. Days, weeks, forever. maybe months, maybe years, maybe no one is coming. Because remember, Mr. Edwards said, I know I'm going the other direction. And Scott said he was staying for a while. Nobody's coming. It's very dangerous. Someone just, like stealing someone, yes, like stealing a wheelchair. Don't take horses. And this guy's kind of lost. I think he's gotten traumatized by his horses, and he's not thinking clearly because his horses are gone. You can't stay here. I don't know, the man said. We'll stay with our wagon, the woman said. She was looking down at her hands clasped in her lap, and Laura couldn't see her face. She could see only the side of the sunbonnet. We'll stay here. We'll stay here with our wagon. That's what that would be like. We'll stay here with the wagon. It's all... When you're out on the prairie, you wear it like this, and there you go. So she couldn't even see this poor lady. It's all bonnet. Terrible. Terrible, terrible. Better come, Pa told them. You can come back for your wagon. No, the woman said. They wouldn't leave the wagon. Everything they owned in the world was in it. So at last Pa drove on, leaving them sitting on the wagon tongue, all alone on the prairie. Yikes. Pa muttered to himself, tenderfeet. Everything they own, and no dog to watch it. Didn't keep watch himself, and he tied his horses with ropes. Pa snorted. Tenderfeet, he said again, shouldn't be allowed loose west of the Mississippi. Oh, but Charles, whatever will become of them? Ma asked him. Now, he's right. Tenderfeet or tenderfoot in the westerns. Tenderfoot is a slang term for your feet are still tender, you haven't walked across the desert, was for the newbies who came out west and really didn't know what they were doing and weren't prepared. People who've been traveling for a while or were just really smart. I mean, Pa was close to a tenderfoot because, look, they kind of blew it there in Kansas. People sometimes came out without thinking it through and were very sheltered. And they got out there in the prairie and they didn't realize they needed to, like, chain the horses thing. They couldn't just do ropes. They didn't realize that they had to keep watch, or have a dog, that security. They didn't realize that there were wolves and Indians and horse thieves. And they would get out there and things would go wrong, and rather than, like, they're saying, thinking clearly and saying, you need to get in the wagon and we'll go to Independence, we'll come back because you can't stay here because you'll die. They're like, no, we'll just wait because, like, maybe a bus is coming because they're city folk. And they think that someone's just going to show up and give them a, Uber. They're going to call Uber. AAA. They're going to call AAA. No, there's no one. And they don't quite get it. So tenderfeet. And he's saying it's dangerous. These people, they shouldn't be out because they can't take care of themselves. And sadly, it's kind of right here. What will become of them? There are soldiers at Independence, said Pa. I'll tell the captain, and he'll send out men to bring them in. They can hold out that long. But it's darned lucky for them that we came by. If we hadn't, there's no telling when they would have been found. So yeah, as soon as he gets to town, he's going to tell the cops, the soldiers, hey, we got two yo-yos out on the highway in their broken down wagon who don't know enough to come in out of the rain. Could you go get them? And they'll go get them. So they'll only have to wait for 4 days or something horrible. But, at least that happened. Laura watched that lonely wagon until it was only a small lump on the prairie. Then it was a speck. Then it was gone. All the rest of that day, Pa drove on and on. They didn't see anybody else. When the sun was setting, Pa stopped by a well. A house had once been there, but it was burned. The well held plenty of good water, and Laura and Mary gathered bits of half-burned wood to make the fire, which Pa unhitched and watered the horses and put them on picket lines. Then Pa took the seat down from the wagon and lifted out the food box. The fire burned beautifully, and Ma quickly got supper. Everything was just as it used to be before they built the house. Pa, Ma, and Carrie were on the wagon seat. Laura and Mary sat on the wagon tongue, and they ate the good supper, hot from the campfire. Peasant Patty and Bunny munched the good grass, and Laura saved bits for Jack, who mustn't beg, but could eat his fill as soon as supper was over. They don't mention why this house they came upon was burned to the ground. People, possibly the Native Americans, burned it and killed everyone. We don't know. And those poor people sitting in the wagon, they're sitting out in the sun. They weren't even well, let's build a campfire and have something to eat while we're waiting. No, they were just sitting there. Scary. Then the sun went down far away in the west, and it was time to make the camp ready for night. Pa chained Pet and Patty to the feed box at the end of the wagon. Notice, chained, not ropes. So if a horse thief comes, unless he brought bolt cutters, which was not really a thing on the prairie, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to. It's not ropes where you just untie them and walk away. He's got chains. So unless you're wandering the prairie with big bolt cutters, it's not happening. So very safe, very safe. Chained them to the feed box at the end of the wagon. He chained Bunny to the side, and then he fed them all their supper of corn. Then he sat by the fire and smoked his pipe. While Ma tucked Mary and Laura into bed and laid baby Carrie beside them. She sat down beside Pa at the fire, and Pa, oh boy, took his fiddle out of its box and began to play. Yay, fiddle! Oh, how adorable! That's Oh Susanna. Do you guys know Oh Susanna? I mean, we used to sing Oh Susanna when I was a little kid at school at a camp. Oh Susanna. It's like huge in the 60s. Oh Susanna, don't you cry for me, the fiddle wailed. And Pa began to sing. I wonder if Pa could actually sing. Because not everyone could. I'm like awful. I wonder if Charles Ingalls in real life could sing. Michael Landon could sort of carry a tune. He could sing kind of. And he couldn't play the... Michael Landon could not play the fiddle. Sorry. Michael Landon did not play the fiddle. Michael Landon went la 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 la. Michael Landon went and pretended to play the fiddle. And if people who really play the violin and the fiddle watch the show, go, ooh, no. So, yeah, Michael Landon did not play the fiddle. But he would do this, and then a brilliant studio musician would play the fiddle, and they'd pipe that in. But Charles, I wonder if Charles could sing. Because he sings a lot, and Ma and the kids don't seem to complain. So maybe that was the thing. Maybe Charles had a really pretty voice. I don't know. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I went to California with a washpan on my knee. And every time I thought of home, I wished it wasn't me. What? Okay. Do you know, Caroline, Pa stopped singing to say, I've been thinking what fun the rabbits will have eating that garden we planted. The things he thinks of. Oh, don't, Charles, Ma said. Never mind, Caroline, Pa told her. We'll make a better garden. Anyway, we're taking more out of Indian Territory than we took in. I don't know. You probably are. I don't know. I don't know what, Ma said. And Pa answered, why, there's the mule. Then Ma laughed, and Pa on the fiddle sang again. In Dixieland I'll take my stand and live and die in Dixie. Away, 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 away. Down south in Dixie. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Dixie, he sings Dixie. They sang with a lilt and a swing that almost lifted Laura right out of bed. She must lie still and not wake Carrie. Mary was sleeping too, but Laura had never been wider awake. Oh, Laura's always awake. She heard Jack making his bed under the wagon. He was turning around and round, trampling down the grass. Then he curled into that round nest with a flop and a sigh of satisfaction. Pet and Patty were munching the last of their corn, and their chains rattled. Bunny lay down beside the wagon. They were all there together, safe and comfortable for the night, under the wide starlit sky. Once more, the covered wagon was home. The fiddle began to play a marching tune. Oh, and Pa's clear voice was singing like a deep-toned bell. Yes, it could sing. And we'll rally round the flag, boys. We'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Is that how that goes? I don't remember how that goes. I'm just going to wait, Carrie. Laura felt that she must shout too, but softly. Ma looked in through the round hole in the wagon cover. Charles, Ma said, Laura is wide awake. She can't go to sleep on such music as that. Pa didn't answer, but the voice of the fiddle changed. Softly and slurringly, it began a long, swinging rhythm that seemed to rock Laura gently. She felt her eyelids closing. She began to drift over endless waves of prairie grasses, and Pa's voice went with her, singing. Row away, row, o'er the waters so blue, like a feather we sail in our gum-tree canoe. Row the boat lightly, love, over the sea. Daily and nightly I'll wander with thee. That's the end. That's at the end of the book. That's at the end of the book. Oh. So it's sort of a happy ending because they're back. They're safe. They all lived. Yay! Nobody died. And they made it into the wagon and they made it out on the prairie. And they showed that their survival skills were at least better than these poor kooks from back east who didn't know enough to, like, get out of the hot sun or, chain their horses or have a dog or, or leave when people say, get in the car, come with, they didn't get in the car. So, they're safer than those kids. But they're back out on the prairie. And now, where are they going? It doesn't even say where they're going. Do they even know where they're going? Are they literally just going to, I don't know, where are we going? I guess we'll figure it out when we get to independence. We'll do that. So, what's today? Today's the 23rd, right? I am going to start the next post. 23rd. Today is National Cherry Cheesecake Day. I don't have any cherry cheesecake. Cherry cheesecake. Make that. Poor Jack. It's National Lost Dogs Awareness Day. That's good. Picnic Day. Take a chance day. Or I don't know. Yes. I shall readeth the scribblings of the doxy Laura anon, because today is Talk Like Shakespeare Day, forsooth. That's good. I like that one. So I am. We must. I'm sniffling here. Okay, good. Good. Yes. I'm so excited about this one because this is the next book. And I think I'll kick it off because they have like a short opening chapter. Obviously, I get excited about this book because a couple of chapters in... Yes. But she doesn't start with it. So I will open it. So we've just gotten off the prairie and they finally are getting some sleep and no one's trying to kill them. And where do they go? There they are. There's Covered Wagon. Oh my. It's like, look, they're hobbits. They go to New Zealand, to the Shire. It's Lord of the Rings. Look, they apparently become hobbits and move to the Shire with Bilbo Baggins. The door in the ground. That is literally the first chapter. The dim wagon track. See, it's perfect. Just straight from wagon track. So we'll do the tie-in. We'll do the segue, and then tomorrow will be a whole thing, and then we'll get Miss Beale here. The dim wagon track went no farther on the prairie, and Pa stopped the horses. When the wagon wheels stopped turning, Jack dropped down in the shade between them. His belly sank on the grass, and his front legs stretched out. His nose fitted in the furry hollow. All of him rested, except his ears. All day long, for many, many days, Jack had been trotting under the wagon. He had trotted all the way from the little log house in Indian Territory, across Kansas. How did they get across that river? Because you remember they almost drowned going out? How did they get back? I don't know. Across Kansas, across Missouri, across Iowa. That's how many states? And a long way into Minnesota. 1, 2, 3, 4. They just went 4 states. They just went 4 states. They just, like thousands and thousands of miles. Okay. He had learned to take his rest whenever the wagon stopped. Poor dog. In the wagon, Laura jumped up, and so did Mary. Their legs were tired of not moving. Was this like months? Weeks? Months? How long were they in this wagon? Because they're talking Iowa, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri. They just went all the way to Minnesota. They didn't think of like maybe stopping in Iowa. I don't know. They went all the way to Minnesota. They were tired of not moving. I'll bet. This must be the place, said Pa. How do we know this? It's half a mile up the creek from Nelson's. We've come a good half mile, and there's the creek. So clearly she's left out a bit where between this long trek across 4 states, they met up with someone, had a conversation, struck a deal, and said, go to the creek over there, and that's the house. So that's what's happened. They made a deal. Laura could not see a creek. She saw a grassy bank, and beyond, in a line of willow treetops, waving in the gentle wind. Everywhere else, the prairie grasses were rippling far away to the sky's straight edge. Seems to be some kind of stable over there, said Pa, looking around the edge of the canvas wagon cover. But where's the house? Laura jumped inside her skin. A man was standing beside the horses. No one had been in sight anywhere, but suddenly that man was there. His hair was pale yellow. His round face was as red as an Indian's, and his eyes were so pale they looked like a mistake. Jack growled. His eyes were so pale they looked like a mistake. He's like clear eye. He's like borderline albino. He's so white and white. Be still, Jack, said Pa. He asked the man, "Are you Mr. Hanson?" "Mr. Hanson!" Oh, it's different from the show. In the show, Mr. Hanson is like a person in Walnut Grove who lives there and who has a mill. In this, Mr. Hanson is there and he's on his way. He's like leaving. It's not. It's so. But Mr. Hanson, is in the books, even though he doesn't have a big part like in the show. "Are you Mr. Hanson?" "Yeah," the man said. Pa spoke slowly and loudly, as we always do when trying to speak English to foreigners. Yes, Pa's doing that thing tourists do. "Hey, do you have a hotel room?" Shouting at people who speak another language helps. Always helps so much. No. So Pa spoke slowly and loudly. "I heard you want to go west. You trade your place?" The man looked slowly at the wagon. He looked at the Mustangs, Pet and Patty. After a while, he said again, "Yeah." Pa got out of the wagon, and Ma said, "You can climb out and run around, girls. I know you're tired sitting still." Jack got up when Laura climbed down the wagon wheel, but he had to stay under the wagon until Pa said he might go. He looked out at Laura while she ran along a little path that was there. The path went across short, sunny grass to the edge of the bank. Down below it was the creek, rippling and glistening in the sunshine. The willow trees grew up beyond the creek. Over the edge of the bank, the path turned and went slanting down, close against the grassy bank that rose up like a wall. Laura went down it cautiously. The bank rose up beside her till she could not see the wagon. There was only the high sky above her, and down below her the water was talking to itself. Laura went a step farther, and one more step. The path stopped at a wider, flat place where it turned and dropped down to the creek in stair steps. Then Laura saw the door. Dun, 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 dun. Door? The door stood straight up in the grassy bank where the path turned. It was like a house door, but whatever was behind it was under the ground. The door was shut. In front of it lay two big dogs with ugly faces. They saw Laura and slowly rose up. Laura ran very fast up the path to the safe wagon. Mary was standing there, and Laura whispered to her, There's a door in the ground, and two big dogs." She looked behind her. The two dogs were coming. Jack's deep growl rolled from under the wagon. He showed those dogs his fierce teeth. "Rrrr." "Those your dogs?" Pa said to Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson turned and spoke words that Laura could not understand. But the dogs understood. One behind the other, they slunk over the edge of the bank, down out of sight. What do you think? Swedish? Norwegian? What are they? Pa and Mr. Hanson walked slowly away toward the stable. The stable was small, and it was not made of logs. Grass grew on its walls, and its roof was covered with growing grasses, blowing in the wind. Laura and Mary stayed near the wagon where Jack was. They looked at the prairie grasses swaying and bending, and yellow flowers nodding. Birds rose and flew and sank into the grasses. The sky grew very high, and its rim came neatly down to the faraway edge of the round earth. When Pa and Mr. Hanson came back, they heard Pa say, "All right, Hanson, we'll go to town tomorrow and fix up the papers. Tonight we'll camp here." "Yeah, yeah," Hanson agreed. Hanson has said nothing but "yeah," and Pa does not speak Swedish or Norwegian or what have you here, so... Although Ingalls is it? I have to look it up. Is Ingalls Swedish or Norwegian? It's definitely Scandinavian thing. So Pa might speak a little because like his parents or grandparents might have spoken a little. So there you go. So yeah. Pa boosted Mary and Laura into the wagon and drove out on the prairie. He told Ma that he had traded Pet and Patty for Mr. Hanson's land. He had traded Bunny, the mule coat, and the wagon cover for Mr. Hanson's crops and his oxen. Oh, so, in the show, didn't Laura have a pony named Bunny that was her favorite pony that she rode that I took from her on Christmas? And there were, oh, wait, except here we are, it's like day one, and it's like, here, they're trading the horses going bye-bye for the land. She doesn't have a horse named Bunny, because they just traded it. Oops! Trading all the horses here. He unhitched Pet and Patty and led them to the creek to drink. He put them on their picket lines and helped Ma make camp for the night. Laura was quiet. She did not want to play, and she was not hungry. They all sat eating supper by the campfire. The last night out, said Pa. Tomorrow we'll be settled again. The house is in the creek bank, Caroline. Oh, Charles, said Mom, a dugout? Oh, we've never had to live in a dugout yet. I think you'll find it very clean, Pa told her. Norwegians are clean people. It will be snug for winter, and that's not far away. Yes, it will be nice to be settled before snow flies, Ma agreed. They've been traveling for months, again, because now it's almost winter. So, yeah, they've been traveling for months. They've been living outdoors. And, Norwegian, it's true. Norwegians, a cute little Norwegian cabin. Norwegians are very tidy. And so it is a nice, clean little dugout. So Mr. Hansen's Norwegian. I don't know that Pa spoke any Norwegian. And clearly Mr. Hansen does not have a huge English vocabulary. So they could talk, but I'm not really sure how they struck a whole deal financially of trading horses for land. I'm wondering if perhaps Pa did not maybe strike a very good deal, as there was an enormous language barrier. But he's going to try. But it's almost winter. It's only till I harvest the first wheat crop, said Pa. Then you'll have a fine house, and I'll have horses, and maybe even a buggy. This is great wheat country, Caroline. Rich, level land with not a tree or a rock to contend with. I can't make out why Hansen sowed such a small field. It must have been a dry season, or Hansen's no farmer. His wheat is so thin and light. So, think, Pa. So this guy has his land, but he hardly planted any wheat. And he's really, really excited about trading the whole thing. Land with crops on it, barn, house, the whole 9 yards for your horses so he can get out of town. Quickly. He's getting out of Dodge. And Mr. Hansen's like, see ya! And there's probably a reason. There's probably a really good reason that Hansen wants to sell him the land. And this has not occurred to Pa, that there might be something wrong. Beyond the firelight, Pet and Patty and Bunny were eating grass. They bit it off with sharp, pulling crunches and then stood chewing it and looking through the dark at the low stars shining. They switched their tails peacefully. They did not know that they had been traded. Laura was a big girl, 7 years old. Oh my, the things this child has been through. She's like 7. She's 7. How traumatized was this woman? She was too big to cry, but she could not help asking Pa, did you have to give him Pet and Patty? Did you, Pa? Pa's arm drew her close to him in a cuddly hug. Why, little half-pint, Pa said. Pet and Patty like to travel. They are little Indian ponies, Laura, and plowing is too hard work for them. They will be much happier traveling out west. You wouldn't want to keep them here, breaking their hearts on a plow. Pet and Patty will go on traveling, and with those big oxen, I can break up a great big field and have it ready for wheat next spring. Oh, yes, he didn't just get... Now, he traded, 3 horses, 2.5 horses, because little Bunny, and all his stuff for the land, the house, the barn, and oxen. So that's a good trade. Trading horses for oxen is good, because oxen, it's sort of like trading your sports car for a utility truck to do farming and work with. Because oxen, that's a truck. That's your 1870s truck, and that's what he needs. Oh, my. A good crop of wheat will bring us more money than we've ever had, Laura. Then we'll have horses and new dresses and everything you can want. Laura did not say anything. She felt better with Pa's arm around her, but she did not want anything except to keep Pet and Patty and Bunny, the long-eared colt. Well, she also wanted an Indian baby 5 minutes ago. So, I don't know. Because remember she was crying? Because she's like, I want the baby. Can I have the baby? Laura's a little peculiar in her wants. So, we'll see. But Bunny, we had the whole season about Bunny on the show. She had Bunny. Bunny was her horse at Christmas. And then she traded the stove for Bunny. And I came and took her horse on Christmas. You all remember this. And then we had the race. There were the 2 episodes, Bunny and a race. And so there was a race. And then there was the episode Bunny, where I have her horse, and I abuse Bunny, and Bunny throws me, and I pretend to be paralyzed, and Laura pushes me down in a little wheelchair. And she gets Bunny back, and then my mother gets me the racehorse, so we have the race. Bunny. She had Bunny for years on the show. It's like the first season was the Christmas one. Was that third season, Bunny? Years she had this horse in Walnut Grove. And here we are. She hasn't even been to Walnut Grove. They've just arrived at Plum Creek. They've been there 5 minutes. No Bunny. So, sad. Bunny, right, favorite episode. She's saying Bunny is my favorite episode. And everyone knows about the horse Bunny, but there is no Bunny. In real life, Bunny, later, Bunny went west with Mr. Hanson. And then Mr. Hanson, I thought Mr. Hanson ran the mill. Oh, well, on the show, played by the brilliant Carl Svensson, Mr. Hanson was a regular dude in the town who owned the mill where Pa worked and Mr. Edwards did. But in the book, it's like, he's gone. Like in chapter 2, it's like, with Bunny. So this is the thing, that you'll find that like major characters in the TV show are like, oh, hi, bye. Like, where's Mr. Edwards? Do we see Mr. Edwards again? Mr. Edwards is gone. He's like, I'm going down the creek. Later, I'm going to Missouri. And then we haven't heard from him since. I don't know if we ever hear from this guy again. Whereas we saw Mr. Edwards every day on the show. So for the show, what they kind of did was, he sort of did a little pick and choose of favorite characters from the books. Went, oh, but I like Mr. Hanson. Well, Mr. Hanson leaves in chapter 1. Yes, but I like Mr. Hanson. Can we have this? Put Mr. Hanson in the show. Well, what happened to the Mr. Edwards? Let's bring him back. So there you go. And the Ingalls in real life. I think they were in Walnut Grove for 2 years. A historian buffs can tell me. The history buffs will say they were not out in Walnut Grove that long. And Nellie did not, jump in a wagon train and come on over to South Dakota. Yet, in the books, Nellie's in South Dakota, and in the show, Nellie's there until, the end of the show, until 7 years in. But in real life, Nellie Owens of Walnut Grove, that was it. When they leave Walnut Grove, it's like, ugh, then there's no more Nellie. So Laura started, making stuff up, and added Nellie later. So, yeah, so if they were a character that sounded cool, we just kept them and gave them huge parts in the show. And then we made stuff up and added more people. But Laura's making people up, so we were making people up. So by the time, we get to today, there are so many made-up characters tangled up in this whole story, I can't even keep track. Also, hardcore history buffs will tell you, Laura changed some of the travel timelines that they went from this town to this town. And then when you check in real life, actually they went over to this other town, for a year, and then came back. And they kind of crossed. And when Laura was writing the books, quite sensibly, she said, well, that is too complicated. That is silly. I'm just going to have them go here. Oh, yes, Burr Oak. Yes, they went to Burr Oak. They went to Burr Oak, Iowa. And then they went to Minnesota. And it's complicated. So Laura said, no, this is crazy. I'm going to have them go here, then we're going to go here, and then we're going to here, and we're going to do this because that sounds better. And that's what we're going to do. So, there you are. So it's complicated already. So now we're doing Plum Creek, and soon Nellie will show up. Will I wear the wig when I read the Nellie parts? Yes, I will. And will Charlotte Stewart, Miss Beadle, be here to read about Miss Beadle? Yes, she will. It's so fabulous. So tomorrow we'll do that. And then, again, May 9th, as I say, May 9th, I will be in the other part of the living room performing the short version of my show. It's going to be called Confessions of a Prairie Terror, because it's a little different, a little short, and it'll be fun. Will it be naughty? Be a little naughty. I mean, because, hello. But it's not NC-17, but maybe little PG, little naughty. Okay, people call me bad. They call me the B word. They do. They called me, my book is called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. Yes, yes, and people have called me that. So that will come up. That will come up in conversation for today. But that's as bad as it's gonna get. And talking about people being mean to me and, and about being a crazy ex-child star. But it'll be fun. And questions, I will take questions, and those will be way cool. So it's going to be awesome, and it's half an hour, and it'll be May 9th. And Spin Cycle NYC, go there. And bonnets are coming, hooray. Walnut Grove has shipped them. They're not here yet, Also, we're doing a prize thing. Apparently, with this kooky new thing, Stage It, where I can do my show, they have a thing where people can, win stuff and bid on things and stuff. So there will be some bonnet action there, for sure. This is awesome. Gee, can you tell I'm having a good time doing this? Hey, you know, we were all supposed to go to Missouri to do the Cherry Blossom Festival. That was going to be this weekend. This weekend. Cherry Blossom Festival. Well, obviously, I'm in the living room. We're all in the living room. Nobody's going to Missouri for the Cherry Blossom Festival. But last night we did a thing where a bunch of us recorded little interview panel things. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that the gang at the Cherry Blossom Festival called up a bunch of the people who were going to come and did little interviews and little panel things, and they're going to put that up on the Cherry Blossom website and the Cherry Blossom. Go to the Missouri, the Marshfield, Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival. They've got a website and a Facebook page. They're going to post stuff, so they're going to have, as they're calling it, the at-home version of the Cherry Blossom Festival. So it'll be like, you know, a small, but there will be little bits of some interviews with some of the people who are going to come. So all is not lost. There is an online version of the Marshfield, Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival, and there's an online version of my May 9th New York show. There's an online version of everything. Yay! Yay! So that's going to be fun. So I gotta like do stuff. Gotta get ready for my show and do things. Gotta feed the cat. So, wash your hands, wear little masks, take care of each other, get some rest, This is all exhausting. It's exhausting. It's so tiring. Take naps. Coffee is our friend. I don't know if you guys drink coffee or you like it, but I do. I'm like, yay, caffeine. Because sometimes it's all just so tiring, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna make some more coffee. I got coffee. Grocery stores are still open. So there you go. You know, take care of yourselves, really. It's just, try to have some fun. Gloomy Hudson Valley, New York. Is it gloomy? Man, it's like summer here. That's the other thing. It's going to be hotter than heck. Tomorrow or Saturday, I may do one of my readings outdoors. I got a yard. There's nobody in the yard. I'm still socially distanced. There's no one in my yard. There's not people in my yard. I may go outside because it's a lovely day and, like, you know, have a drink with a parasol and it'll be a hoot. So take care. I'll see you tomorrow and wash your hands.